what I appreciated was it was collegial, it was focused. I thought it was really useful. I would recommend it to people to consider what the real issues are, what the fundamental issues are. And obviously, from my perspective, it wasn't an issue that required laying down fire and digging trenches and doing all the rest of that kind of stuff, which unfortunately happens a lot in social media on these issues.
Yeah, they were really respectful, and I, even though now I'm a flaming presuppositionalist, I still really respectful towards Sproul. And
sure.
But anyway, here I have a question about that debate, and I know you haven't listened to it for 20 years, but maybe some of the topics you're really familiar with presuppositional apologetics. So Sproul had mentioned that Calvin talked about the difference between mediate revelation and immediate revelation.
Okay.
And I think the idea there is that, the law of God written on your heart, right? There's some immediate revelation where you don't have to, God doesn't reveal himself to you through the means of some mediation. There's a sense in which the law of God is written on your heart. It doesn't require your eyeballs or whatever, right?
Right.
But then the immediate revelation would be God revealing himself through the things that were created, and a recognition that you look up at the starry host and know that the divine, something of the divine, right, from like Romans 1. But Bahnsen seemed to have a problem with that. He said it seemed like he wasn't willing to admit that there was immediate revelation and immediate revelation.
Because that sounds like, the way that you've described it sounds like a division of one aspect of revelation, which is considered general revelation. And so it seems like that is an attempt to make a division regarding what gets through. So in Romans 1, it is interesting, and this may have something to do with that. But when I'm translating this section, and it says, "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse." Now, what has been made there is tois poiemasin. So are we a part of that, or is that just the external creation? For even though they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks, became futile in their speculations, for his heart was darkened, exchanged glory of the incorruptible God, so on and so forth. So when it says, actually it's verse 19, because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. When it says in them, it's en autois, which can be translated amongst them or in them. So the from 118 and following, when you look at what's being said, I always say when we look outward, we see it. When we look inward, we see it. It sounds like what Sproul was saying there was looking at those two and making them separate categories, immediate and mediate. And maybe that's what Bahnsen was, again, it's been 20 years, but maybe that's what Bahnsen was uncomfortable doing, is dividing the one revelation that in verse 19 says, "For God manifested it autois," to them. So it's God's manifestation, it's his intention that it function to communicate this information, because that's what leaves them, what's the last word of verse 20? Anapologetus, without an excuse. So maybe there was something. I do have it on the list of things I want to get back to, but I got people sending me books, and it's just and the Wilson stuff's keeping me busy. But I do want to get back to it and listen to it again, because you're not the first person who's asked called with a question about it. But I'm wondering if maybe Bahnsen was either preempting a direction he thought Sproul might go, or was sensing that Sproul was going to in some way insist that by dividing what general revelation actually accomplishes, that he was opening up some type of role for natural theology or something along those lines. I don't know. But whatever the last phrase of verse 19, for God manifested to them, means, it results in the fact they're unapologetus in verse 20.
So listening to that debate, and I've listened to it a bunch of times, and actually an interesting thing is that the church that I belong to, we had a visit from Vern Poythress, and we were able to sit down and speak to him and speak to his wife, who was a student of R.C. Sproul's. And Vern Poythress is a presuppositionalist, and she was really saying that Sproul, underneath a lot of it, was presuppositionalist at heart. During the debate...
Well, we know he's Sproul a presuppositionalist now.
Oh, yeah. Sproul, during the debate, was acknowledging that even the distinction between mediate and immediate, that it all gets through, right? Because God gets it through, and the problem is that it's a suppression of what has gotten through.